Hi, I'm Picasso with the Eagle Riders MC, and I am here today with...
I'm Hollywood with Black Patch MC here in Las Vegas.
Welcome to the Biker Protocol channel. Today we're going to talk about clubhouses. Before we actually get into that, start diving into that, we have a fun announcement to make. We mentioned in one of our other videos, some people have been asking us why we are doing so many remote broadcasts at different locations. The reason is that we're in the process of building out our own studio right now. So we're moving into a bigger place where we can do more really cool interviews of people. It's going to be larger, much more interesting looking, and we're really kind of excited to be moving into that. So that's coming soon. In the meantime, we'll have a few more videos like this where we might be shooting these kind of in some different locations, but they'll all be really, really good content, I promise. But yeah, so a few more weeks we'll be back into the studio, and it'll be our own place, so it'll be kind of neat. So yeah.
And don't forget to hit subscribe and the bell down there, so when we do move and we have new videos in the studio, you'll be notified.
You'll get the notification, and it also you'll see all of our ongoing videos as well. But subscribing helps us build this channel, and so the more we have people subscribe, the better it is. So thanks for doing that. So today's video is going to be about clubhouses. So I can speak from our own personal experience. We've been in our own clubhouse for about 7 years now, and there's definitely some pros and cons to being in it that we wanted to talk about, because you might be in a club, whether it's an MC or an RC, and you might be interested in possibly moving into a clubhouse. And there's just some things to consider a little bit. From our own experiences, things you might want to think about a little bit. So the first thing I will say is cost, right? And cost is a major thing. We have a mortgage, well, it's not really a mortgage, but it's a rent that we have to pay every month. And so you have to be able to kind of realize that with your dues or activities or events that your club is doing, make sure that you have enough money in your bank account to not just it's like moving into any place, right? You have to have usually first and last or a security deposit. These are all things that we had to do when we moved in here, because we're renting our place, we don't own it. And so, it's a substantial cost. You got to make sure that your membership is there to be able to sustain that, either through dues or through events. And
I have an idea of how you can raise costs for a clubhouse.
Sure.
You can start by watching our how to do a poker run video. And do a poker run.
That's true. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. Funny you bring that up. But we use our clubhouse here, and we're in the Eagle Riders clubhouse today. So that's actually where we're filming this. We have it on the bar here.
Nice little bar table.
Yeah, this used to be a blackjack table, actually. We turned it into a bar. So one of the things we love about our clubhouse is whenever we have events, this is, when we do our poker run every year, this is one of the stops. So it's a great place for, as like an outreach thing to get people to learn about your club and things like that. But it's really important, and I got to stress this, the money end can be very divisive amongst clubs. And so you need to kind of watch that a little bit. It is a rent that you have to deal with, and it is possibly a rent that could be going up every year. So you got to budget for that.
No, it's going up. It's always going up.
It's always going. It never goes down. Funny, it never seems to go that way, right?
But on that same note, for costs, it also saves costs in some ways.
Right.
Meaning, like you said, you can have a stop here. You have your poker runs in here, or start here, pig roast. All the things,
right? All the things are raise money, right?
Yeah, and then you've got it centralized. You're not having to rent a place, find a place, deal with other outside forces.
Part of the reason we were looking for a place was because whenever we would have church, whenever we would do outings, whatever, we were renting rooms out, And so it's not a huge expense, but we're like, well, why are we giving money to somebody else, right? But we can have a place of our own where we can actually do fundraising and stuff. And even in the wintertime when it's cold out, we do we have a fire pit, we smoke cigars out there, we do a myriad of things. We do poker, once a month we do a poker night. So we have a poker tournaments here every month where the house takes a rake, right? So every time we do a poker night, we make a couple $100, So it's like,
talk on that though, and I'll default to you a lot for this, because you guys, so Black Patch does not have a clubhouse, and that's another story. But so you have all these events here. A clubhouse is a great spot to do these things. Have a central location, church, meetings, anything you can really think of. But also talk on the management of it, or the upkeep, because that's also a big thing. So going to the aspect of having a clubhouse versus not, or why you should have a clubhouse or why you shouldn't.
Right.
I mean, let's break that down.
Yeah, so along with that, so we have a quartermaster as like a non-voting officer of the board, right? And so their job is to basically do everything to manage the clubhouse, keep it clean. Their job is everything from mopping the floors to keeping the bathrooms clean, but a lot of it is doing the shopping for the club. A lot of it is going out and buying bottles of water, sodas, toilet paper, paper towel, like anything that the clubhouse needs. We have a designated person, that's their job, is to keep all of that organized. And it's a big job. It's a big responsibility. We have a shopping list on the wall. Whenever we need something, people write it on there, and it's their job once a month to go to Costco or Sam's Club and do the bulk shopping for all this stuff, because we plow through it like crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So having someone that can be dedicated to that, or do you ever have prospects taking care of the place?
All the time. Yeah. Oh, all the time. So we're here in Las Vegas, and if you've ever been out in the desert, you will know that every time, like usually about a week or two after it rains, we get weeds pop up like crazy. So that's a prospect job. Is, hey, we got weeds that need pulling. I mean, it's not a fun thing to do, but it's a needed thing to do, because somebody's got to do it. Why not a prospect?
Definitely. And
so
that's always been the discussion with us when we've discussed clubhouses or not. Is those general upkeeps. You have your prospects. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have members there to do it, and so forth. And then, dividing that and conquering and figuring out who's going to actually take that step in to do it too, as well, to keep it up at a level that's manageable.
Well, and things that we have learned by having the place is if you're thinking about getting a place, you have to completely retrain the way you think about how you buy and shop for things and how you're going to supply the place.
Sure, yeah.
So, we look on Craigslist, on OfferUp, on Facebook Marketplace, like all these places for things like chairs, bar stools. We buy this stuff, a lot. Like we have, I'll see if I can get some picture. We have stacks of chairs over here because we're having church this Saturday, right? We have stacks of chairs all over the place. We bought these on one of those sites. I think we spent 50 cents a chair.
Yeah.
And they're okay chairs. They're not great, but they're surely worth more than 50 cents. But
it's a clubhouse.
That's right. What do we care, right?
It's probably
like, that's exactly right. What do we care? But when we need a chair, so these are things you have to think about a little bit. It's you really have to think outside the box. But you also want to think about how you want to decorate it, how you want to personalize it. All this stuff costs money, and it's a thing that a lot of times people don't always think like, oh, let's just get a clubhouse, it'll be great. And then, you start looking at like, oh my gosh, it's like so much money to maintain it. But once you have it, it's great, There's a lot of benefits to it too. You have rides leave from there. It's a great selling point for joining your club. Mm-hmm. If you want to get hang-arounds to become prospects, having a clubhouse is a huge benefit.
As long as they're okay with pulling weeds, though.
As long as they're okay with pulling weeds, right? Yeah. But there's, like I said, a lot of benefits to it. It's a nice place to be able to have everybody get together. My VP just put a group chat out. He's like, hey, let's just everybody get together and hang out tonight. Nothing special, nothing interesting. We'll order a bunch of pizzas and sit around and BS and smoke some cigars tonight, and it'll be great.
So what was the?
And then we all throw a few bucks in the pot.
What was the tipping point when you guys decided we should get a clubhouse? Like, was there membership was getting bigger, or I don't know. What would you say was the tipping point on?
Our tipping point, I think, was we were just sick of meeting in parking lots for rides. We were doing a lot of activities together as a group, and we just got tired of going into bars. Mm-hmm. And giving money to somebody else, and we're like, well, what if we just got our own place? And it was also for safety reasons and other things. What if we like? I'll give you an example. One of our guys in our club is a truck driver, right? So he drives semi trucks cross country, and occasionally he might be in transition where he's based here in Vegas, so he might be in transition where he might have 4 or 5 hours between he's doing whatever, and he comes to the clubhouse and crashes out for a couple hours, because where he lives is an hour away. One of the things we looked at, and this is another tip if you're looking at getting a clubhouse, find the centermost part in the city where you're at, and that's where you should be shopping for a place. Because if you go too far off in the distance, then somebody's going to have to ride longer to get there, and then you'll start getting complaints from your members.
Think about this. So let's go into the pros and cons of it.
Yeah.
You've mentioned quite a few pros, which it sounds amazing. But cons, you mentioned.
There's many of those.
When I hear you say in the center of town, here in Vegas, the real estate business is.
Yeah.
So. Now, center of town is expensive, so I don't know. I guess
we're pretty central now.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we are.
But
it took us a while to figure out. And honestly, we looked for the most rundown neighborhood we could find.
And you've been here for a while, so it's not like
Right
right now. Recently in Vegas, the real estate market's gone up. So find a place here central. I mean, we know of a super old, one of the older clubs here in town that lost their place because of the rent being raised.
Being too high,
They've been there for a long time. So and then I'm going to go into not necessarily a con, but an opposite viewpoint. So there's a conversation that I've always heard with other clubs and other people that you're either a clubhouse club or a club, motorcycle club. One of the big things is you get a clubhouse, you end up stay in the clubhouse. Like all these things.
You become a slave to the property,
yeah,
right?
You have to keep it up. You have to run events to keep the power on.
There's a lot of truth to that. There really, really is a lot of truth to that. Yeah.
So there's the opposite. If you don't have a clubhouse, you don't have any of that, and you're able to ride like a motorcycle club. I'm not saying that people with clubhouses don't, but also thinking if you're, my thoughts, if you're going to be looking at getting one, maybe one not so central is not actually a bad idea, because then you're still riding.
Yeah.
I mean, it does complicate, it's at that scale.
Yeah, it's kind of a dichotomy there, yeah.
Balance it. So what's the, how much weight do you want to put on each side?
Sure. We got, I think a lot of where we wound up came to luck.
Yeah.
I think it really is. Yeah.
I mean, I was surprised that, like just so central, because I know there's a lot of other ones that are, they're way east side or something.
Right. So, and I'll share with you one other element to where we've picked our neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
So like I said, it's not a bad neighborhood, but it's certainly not like nice suburban. We're not in like that kind of neighborhood, right? And so us setting up and establishing ourselves, the neighborhood doesn't care. So, because we don't have like an HOA or any of those kind of things, right?
That's a big thing to consider.
Oh yeah, major thing. Yeah. So one of the questions we get asked a lot by other people is how the neighborhood deals with us being here. Mm-hmm. Because everybody in our neighborhood knows who we are, what we do. Yeah. We have a big flagpole that we put in the front with our flag on it, right? We got the American flag and our flag underneath it. So everybody knows who we are, what we do, and they obviously know because the bikes come rolling in. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? And so when we first moved in, there were some concerns about how that was going to be dealt with. And it turns out the reaction we got was much more positive than we would have thought that it was going to be.
Really?
So yeah, because we were concerned that, oh my God, everybody's going to freaking out because a bunch of bikers are here and they're going to be concerned and we're going to get police. And it turns out that the neighbors on one side of us don't care anything. We don't really talk. They're nice people, but just don't talk to them much. The neighbor on the other side thinks we're like the coolest people ever. And the woman who lives across the street from us is like the neighborhood busybody, and she knows everybody, and she thinks we're awesome. So
have you invited the
yes,
person over?
Always, every time we have a pig roast, they eat for free. Oh yeah. No, we take care of our neighbors. But whenever there's trouble or whenever there's problems, they look at us as the protectors of the neighborhood. So it gives us, it was surprising to hear that from them, that like, oh, we're so glad you're here because we know, look, we're not going to be out hell raising and doing all that, right? But they look at us as like the neighborhood security. So if anything is going to go down, they realize like it's the bikers that are going to protect us.
And hopefully I'm not stepping out of line here, because I remember you telling me, I think it was, you had told me this story, and you mentioned the police.
Yeah.
Not meaning like police department, but policing your own neighborhood, policing your own club or people that are coming over.
Well, even police too, because because you got to worry about that also.
Before we get there, because I'm pretty sure you mentioned a story once of someone just doing burnouts down when they leave.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not cool. Because
bad. Yeah.
So you've got to police that.
Right.
Otherwise, now the neighborhood's going to start complaining.
We had a prospect. I'll share the story. We had a prospect, and he washed out. And one of the major reasons was, well, a lot of reasons, but then one of the main reasons we were having I think it was a pig roast, and he decided to do burnouts down the street. Mm-hmm. And when he did do one of them, he dropped his girlfriend off the back of the bike.
Oh no!
And she got all banged up and everything, and it caused a whole big mess. And so that was, but the main issue we had was like, look, if you're going to be stupid, we don't care if you're stupid. We'd prefer you not to be, but don't be. But if you're going to do it, don't do it in front of the clubhouse because that draws all the wrong kind of attention.
There's
absolutely.
Bit of protocol for the clubhouse. You're pulling up to someone's clubhouse, music down, no revving your engine, no burnouts, you're parking nice.
Yeah.
You're not meant to bring unwanted attention to their house, right?
Well, one of the concerns that we always have is what happens when police get called. Now, we've been fortunate with that, but we know personally from other clubs in town that have had parties, had events, and the police show up. We've done videos where we showed police show up with cameras across the street. With the big telephoto lenses, and it's ridiculous, right? So that's definitely a con part, in the negative column of having a clubhouse. It does draw attention.
Yeah.
And if you think the police don't know you're there, they know you're there.
Oh yeah, and they know who you're with. They know what you're doing.
100%.
And then also leaving clubhouses. I've had my share. If you leave a clubhouse and there's police, you might get pulled over.
Yeah.
They're gonna hassle you. They're gonna ask you questions. And what's it? Shut the F up Friday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't say anything. So expect that. Expect to be put on as whatever known associates and stuff of other clubs that maybe you don't want to be a part of. So that's something to consider when going to a clubhouse.
Yeah, and we've personally had guys in our club get pulled over coming and going from parties.
Yeah.
Where they just randomly pull people over. Hey, let's see your registration, and they sweat you. They know it's 118 degrees outside. And they're gonna make you sit on your bike for 45 minutes while they run your ID, and then they let you go. We've seen that. We've seen where if they're suspecting that you're charging or serving alcohol, they'll use the guys that we might think you're serving to minors, so they'll raid your clubhouse.
That's actually, our club has a story. One of our guys, years and years ago, there was a clubhouse up north, and he was there, and it got raided.
Yeah.
And he was able to get out. They were going for, I guess, the owners of the clubhouse, but. That's something actually to really consider. You could be part of that.
And be aware that never, ever, ever keep anything in your clubhouse that you don't want to be found by the police.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying, we don't, but just word of advice, be aware that day could come, and so be prepared for that.
And then if that were to happen, they own the house at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to tear it apart.
Yeah.
So you can do poker runs, events, you've got your church, you got center meetings. Since you have a clubhouse,
sure.
What do you think is bad about it, though?
I'd say the number one thing is the money, right?
Okay.
I mean, it's got to be number one. And we talked about it already, but I got to stress that it's a large nut you have to be aware of every single. And you got to pay your rent on time, power bill, all these things, right? It's just like having a second rent that you've got. If you're living in an apartment, now you got a second one. Yeah. So you have to make sure your membership is on board. You got to make sure money's coming in on a regular basis. This is going to fall very heavily on your treasurer. So they're going to have to keep dues steady. They have to all this stuff it's going to fall a lot on their treasurer. And then also is going to wound up on somebody's name too. So any kind of lease agreement, that's going to fall on some member of your clubs. Be prepared for that, right? So all of these things are little things to be aware of. Other downsides to it are, a lot of times, there are ways you can help monetize a club that if it's big enough, like we're in a residential area, we used to have a tenant, right? And so we don't anymore. We actually had a second bedroom, and so we converted into like a sports watch, like a little sport book room. Got big sofas in there, big screen TV, the whole thing, right? So we just converted it. But we used to have a tenant in there, and so one of the biggest things that we ever had was a problem was the tenant. So because we've had good tenants, which are great, you never see them out of sight, out of mind. They're great, but we've had our series of very bad tenants, and so when you have people that are living in there and you have a hard time evicting them because they're not paying the rent and they're just a hassle, and I don't want to go down all the details of that, but holy cow, let me tell you something. If you're looking at that as an option, which is a great option, because if you can get somebody paying, a third or half of your rent every month, holy cow, is that great? But then comes a nightmare. Like we had a tenant one time who was an alcoholic, and so we come in and all of a sudden all our booze was seriously. So we have
cost.
That was a cost, right? So we started. I swear to you, we used to mark our bottles, and we'd come in a week, and they're all like, so that was some pretty painful conversations we had to have. So these are things you got to deal with. So those are definitely, that's a big issue. And
I'm going to go back. Do you feel you guys ride just as much as you do prior?
It's a good question. I would say we do, but we are probably a little more selective. Like, there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. Yeah. I think back before we got the clubhouse, it was a lot more like, let's just go on rides. And we're not a big bar hopping club. So, it's never been an issue like that. But we have noticed that at times we tend to fall back on, hey, let's have more events at the clubhouse. And because you got to support it, right? Yeah. So recently we were starting to get that feedback from our members that, we're not going on rides as much anymore. And when you're not riding, you don't have that camaraderie. It's a different type than when you're having a party at the clubhouse.
Yeah, definitely.
And so we started realizing that, and then we realized also that when you're not riding as much, your hang-arounds are not coming around as much. So getting rides going is what gets people interested in your club. Yeah. And so when we were focused more on the clubhouse, we were noticing lower turnout from people that from new people, because we weren't doing that. So the answer to your question is yes. And we have to force ourselves to kind of like, hey, wait a minute, we need to get more rides going. Yeah. And we've noticed with us, it's the longer rides tend to get more attendance, right? Yeah. When we do a full day ride somewhere, we get way better attendance on that than we go for somewhere for like an hour to a restaurant or something,
Someone going to a clubhouse for their first time, what do you think is the first thing that they should, I feel like I'm doing an interview of you.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I mean, it's just a good conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the first thing you think someone coming to, they're walking in your door right now.
Yeah.
Let's say nobody's out front or whatever,
Sure.
going to say hi or whatever. They're walking in your front door. They've obviously know someone. You're not going to invite some stranger.
Right,
most
right.
likely. What do you think they should do?
Well, what we always tell people is if we know that there's going to be a hang around that we have never met yet, we send them a little email and essentially explain it to them. Yeah. So say, hey, come on down to the clubhouse. Just knock when you come in. So we give them kind of some basics, right? We always post a prospect outside.
I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah,
because
sure.
Actually, what I'm looking for an answer is like an event, not like a member or a hang around. So a stranger or another club member coming in. What do you think would be the first
Generally,
thing?
the best protocol is when they walk in, or if you're walking into somebody else's clubhouse, find the first officer you can of whoever's house it is, and go and do the introductions. We call it walking the line, right?
Yeah.
So
I always say kissing babies.
Yeah, kissing baby, right? Yeah.
Shaking hands, kissing baby, whatever. That phrase is.
I think we talked about this in another video.
Kind of mentioned it a little
but
bit.
you should. The first thing you should be doing is, and usually anybody from that club will find you because they're looking at the door opening, right? The first thing you should do is find out whoever before you say hi to. Even if you might know some people there. Hey, how you doing? Let me just check in with these guys real quick. Yeah. First thing you do, find out whoever's house it is, and go introduce yourself, shake their hands. Do that whole routine.
Think of it as your own house. If someone just walked in your house and walked right past you, went to the fridge or something.
Yeah, what would you think? Right?
You would be like, excuse me, you know, like so. It goes back to a lot of what we've talked about, respect and responsibility on like you're an adult and be an adult. A little bit of protocol that I've been taught and I've learned. Don't get trashed at a clubhouse. Yeah. It's not a place, it's not a bar, it's not a place to just get blackout drunk and act a fool. Right, because then you become their responsibility, especially if you don't have brothers there. And now you're in their clubhouse and the doors are closed and don't be surprised if your cut disappears. Yeah. So what are some things you can think of protocol-wise? Being at a clubhouse, arriving at a clubhouse? Also just, make sure that you're respectful to everybody that's there, because you don't know who's looking at you, right? And so we had a conversation off camera. I'm going to abbreviate the word a little bit, but we had a guy who was our quartermaster here living in the clubhouse. He was one of our members actually, and that worked out really good because we had a member living here. And so he was paying the rent and whatnot. And so we had an open house one night. We had a pig roast, and we had a bunch of people here. It was a lot of people here. And so we had this one guy. He was kind of a wannabe hang-around. The guy was just dopey and he's just an odd guy. And so he was walking and talking with our member who lived here, our quartermaster. And so they were having a conversation. So he said, so what do you do here? And he said, I live here. I take care of the place and all that. And this goofy guy's answer was, I don't even know how I'm going to, he goes, so you're the house? Oh, yeah. C word, right? Insert, right? And so, needless to say, fight broke out about that fast, And so, that guy was literally physically thrown out of the place pretty quick. That became like a running joke for a long time about that. But pretty wholly inappropriate. And so, you say something like stupid like that to the wrong person, and that could go down really, really bad. So I'd say another thing is you don't park unless it's already organized by, like, say, the club or whatever. Don't park in front of their clubhouse. That's reserved for members. For members, right? Only you park where they're unless they've got a spot for you guys. Right. Usually there's prospects directing traffic. That's correct. Yeah, when we have events here, we have prospects out front. We actually have cones that we put out for parking. We put a sign up so people know. But a lot of clubs. There's a few clubs here in town. You can just kind of show up and hang out if you know the people. Right. And same thing. They're not going to have people out there. You just park off to the side wherever. And it's not in front. And then same thing. You come in. There may not be somebody out there to greet you. Come in right to the first officer, I guess you say hi, and I like to at least try to make the rounds of everyone in there, at least. So here's another thing is know when you've been there too long, right? Yeah. Because they may want to go home too. Yeah, know them when enough is enough. Yeah. We've had guys, and we love them, but we've had people at the clubhouse here. We've done like a poker night. Yeah. We're tired. A lot of us have to go to work the next day. Things like that, and these guys want to sit and drink and stuff till 4 a.m, and so it's know when enough is enough, right? So be respectful of that too. Again, it's just a respect thing. Yeah, definitely. It'd be the same thing as if you showed up somebody's house, right? So it's a lot of those kind of things. Yeah, and so there's those pros and cons. You kind of have to weigh it out. The money, as you mentioned, is probably the heaviest weight biggest pill to swallow. And then you don't want to get also stagnant, like you mentioned, just becoming that clubhouse club. and still ride. There's benefits to both sides. I'll say from our standpoint, not having a clubhouse, you speak a lot of truth when saying finding a spot to meet up.
Yeah.
We all get our regular spots, but as times have gone on, especially in this town, every little bar, every little restaurant is starting saying no cuts allowed.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of that.
So you're popping around, and then you eventually, we all have our own houses too, which can, be a meeting spot, but you're definitely not going to have it open to the public.
Yeah.
So, we all do our fair share.
There are definitely pros and cons of having a club. There's no question on both of those. And a lot of the cons are big issues. I mean, they are, and it can be very divisive for some clubs moving on. However, I will say, from somebody who's been in one for as many years as we have, the benefits vastly outreach, vastly are better than the negatives.
Yeah.
But again, figure out, make sure you're budgeting, make sure your membership can support it, make sure your club is big enough to support it, and make sure people are on board. Like I said, it's sometimes we have to do things like once every couple of months where it's scrubbing toilets and fixing faucets. It's the non-glamorous part of having a clubhouse requires stuff to do. So make sure that you have members that can handle that kind of thing.
Here's a kind of I don't know if you call it protocol question for your clubhouse. How do you deal with, or do you accept if people are like open carrying?
It's a great question. We know clubs. That's a really good question. We know clubs in town that are not friendly to that.
They have metal detectors out.
They actually will wind you down.
You can come in with a knife.
I think every club needs to have that policy. We're okay with it. That's our policy. Open carry in Nevada, where we're at, is fine.
Legal.
Most of the guys in our club open carry or conceal carry. So we don't have any issue with it.
I bring it up just because that's something to consider going to another clubhouse as well in terms of protocol.
Right. And they'll let you know when you come in. Usually,
some are even as strict as leaving your cell phone in your bike. And I think that brings up a good point: is don't take photos in a clubhouse,
right? Unless they tell you to.
You're not going around taking pictures of all their memorabilia,
right?
And
or their people's vests or back patches and things like that. That's a really good point.
That's a big thing in this social media day and age, is because there may be people there that shouldn't be there,
right?
Maybe. I don't know.
So we've gone to other clubhouses where we've just asked them, hey, do you mind if we take a group photo here? Yeah. And I don't think we've ever heard no, but ask. It's better to ask and get permission than get them all mad at it because you're doing it anyways.
What are your thoughts on events that are posted publicly at a clubhouse? So there's a lot of clubhouses here in Vegas. I've seen a lot of bigger clubs will post an event publicly on Facebook. It's not just to certain members or clubs or having now the public is essentially invited, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that's kind of
becomes a public event? We have kind of mixed feelings on it. Our attorney has said not to do that.
I mean,
and he's made it very clear not to do that because his logic is you're basically giving an open invitation for the police to just show up and raid your place.
Yep.
So. We have never had an issue with it. We don't care if people, because we have this whole place locked down, and we don't carry anything super valuable in here, So there's that, right? So, but generally but you're right. We know a lot of clubs, and it's mostly 1% clubs, where they'll have an event and they'll say it's at our clubhouse. Contact me for address.
Yeah.
So and that's a smart way of doing it. My only concern with that is if the police really wanted to get your address, either they're going to find out that way, or they're just going to know anyways, or
I think it's more of they're doing that so that they know who's asking.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And be like, I don't know who you are. Sorry, we're not giving that.
I think that's exactly what it is.
Well, I mean, protocol. I'm going back to the biker protocol of a clubhouse. Anything else you can think to add? I mean, it always comes down, in my opinion, anything in this life of motorcycle clubs and motorcycling is respect.
Absolutely,
and just
that's all. That's what it all encompasses to some degree or another. Yeah.
Just be as if you're going into someone's clubhouse, be as if they were coming into your house.
Right.
How you would want them to act. You're not getting drunk. Saying hi, thank you. What about leaving the clubhouse? I tend to feel. You don't need to go say thank you to everyone, but finding someone.
I generally, my policy is say goodbye to 2 club members, at least one of them be an officer.
At least.
So just say, hey, thanks for having us. Have a great day. That's all.
Acknowledge that you're leaving,
right?
Not just what are they, the Irish goodbye things.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned that before. Yeah.
just disappear. So that's definitely something to.
So I always make it a policy: say goodbye to at least 2 people of the club that you're at. Just say goodbye, but you don't have to go to every single person. I don't think that's necessary. So.
Fun topic now, real quick. What's not your own clubhouse? What's the coolest, and if you're able to keep it in a, so you're not giving away the identities or who it is, the coolest thing to happen in a clubhouse, or that you've seen, the coolest thing that was there, that was like, this is cool, we got to do this in ours, or just remembering it, or
I think one of the neatest things that I saw was we were at a 1%, and I'll share with you, we were part of it, and it was kind of like it was a funny story. So one of the 1% clubs here in Vegas has a very big clubhouse. And so they had different clubs that they would basically pay to get a sponsor, a section of the inside of the wall in their yard, right? Cool, They have a giant backyard with a stage. It's really nice. And so we were thinking, hey, that's like, what a cool thing, right? Yeah. So we asked them how much does it cost, and they told us, and we're like, we're going to do this. We're not a support club for them, but we're like, just to have our presence there, we thought it would be really cool. So we paid the money. We had an artist come down, and we got a projector with our cut on it. We beamed it onto the wall, and he painted it. The guy did an amazing job. It's one of our members, Rock, right? The guy's incredible. And he did this amazing job painting this thing, and then like 2 weeks later, COVID hit, and so they stopped doing events because we did this beautiful mural on the wall, and nobody saw it. So, it's kind of a bummer. But, I've seen a lot of neat things, everything from trophies to so things that we've done that we just, not really like, let's be different, but just stuff that we thought would be fun. So we used to have on the wall, we took it down because we have other stuff there now, but we used to have a rotation of photos. So every time we go on rides, we take pictures, and then we'd have them printed, and we had them hanging on a big billboard on the wall. Yeah. So anybody comes in, they just see this giant collage of photos of all the stuff we've done.
That's always fun.
And it makes it really interesting. People are like, wow, it's like, you're really busy. So now what we do is we have a big screen TV in here, and what we do is we have all those photos and videos and all this other stuff, and it cycles on the TV all the time. So when people come in, they can see all this stuff on the TV, So we do stuff like that.
One of the coolest clubhouses I've been in. I mean, I've been in a bigger club, one of the big clubhouse, like their mother chapter, and that was mind blowing. But there was one I went to that was, it was this like whole industrial building that they had their bar, which was like a legit like bar, and it like. That could have been its own restaurant right there. Then they had a merchandise table.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Several little like private rooms that what stays in the clubhouse or happens in the clubhouse stays in. It was pretty awesome. That one's always stuck out to me.
Yeah, I've been in some gigantic ones too, where they have huge sofas and recliners and projected TV. Great for. It looks like a major hotel sports book, right? I've also known clubs here in Vegas even that have liquor licenses, so they actually have filed for. Really? They actually filed for a liquor license, so that way they can actually legally serve alcohol and not run into any law enforcement issues, right? So there's all kinds of things that you can do, but again, all that comes down to money, really. But with a liquor license, that gives you a lot more.
And I mean, maybe we do a video on liquor in the clubhouse. Separately. We're kind of talking about cool things in the clubhouse. If you're able to, what's the craziest or coolest thing that's happened in your clubhouse?
I think the one thing we take the most pride in is our club's been on a lot of reality shows. You were actually part of a couple of them.
Yeah, that was fun.
We did one with Gordon Ramsay once, which was we do a whole video on that.
He cut us all off.
Yeah, it was
like
we'll do a video on it because it was a crazy story. But we were on an Irish reality show, and it was sort of like a Make-A-Wish type thing, where we actually, it was a father and son, and the son had a severe learning and physical disability. And so they would basically take this family from Ireland, they gave him like this amazing experience in the US. And part of the experience was kind of meeting up with a motorcycle gang, And so, as I'm sure everybody knows, all reality shows are not real. So it was all staged, or most of it was anyways. But we did create this amazing experience for this father and son.
That's cool.
And and part of the experience was bringing them into the clubhouse. And so, that was a really neat thing. Oh, I will share another really crazy one too, and you were part of that too. Actually, well, one of your guys was, Static. We had the Peanut Mobile show up here, right? So the Wiener Mobile and the Peanut Mobile, it's actually the same organization that runs both of them. So we took
can you specify Wiener Mobile?
Yeah, the Oscar Mayer. There we go. Right. So the Peanut Mobile is the Planners peanut. So they reached out to us. It's a long story, but we actually took them on a tour of Southern Nevada. So we rode along with the Peanut Mobile. We took them out to like a remote location.
Yeah,
it was this crazy experience. Yeah. And so we had the Peanut Mobile parked outside of our clubhouse for a while. Yeah. And all of the neighborhood was like, what in the world? You know, and so everybody showed up and we come out of the clubhouse and the whole neighborhood is standing on our driveway just trying to figure out what was going on. So that was pretty funny.
Being, I don't want to say it's the identity of your guys' club, but being in the film business that you are, the photography business, that's one thing I'd say. If you were to get a clubhouse, it's a good way to kind of express even further what your identity as a club is. You know, by, you know, it sounds goofy, but decorations, you know, like you were mentioning the photos.
You might be a religious club. You might be a, you know, you could be a political club. It could be, you know, any number of those things. And it's a great place to kind of identify with those things. If your members are, you know, if all your guys are Marines, right? You know, I mean, what a great way to kind of, you know, show your passion for that. It could be anything, right? So that's a great point too, And it become, you know, you may not want to put all those little decorations and doodads in your home, but your clubhouse is a great place for that. So
all right, to wrap it up, protocol, like going back to that, like I think we've covered quite a bit of that.
I think so too,
unless there's something you can think of. Do you guys have any input on what to do and don't at a clubhouse, or if you have your own clubhouse and what you allow?
We'd love to hear about it,
definitely put that in. We can always share those opinions, and it'll help you know, let others know.
Please and please like and share the video. It really helps us build this channel a lot, and that's, you know, something we've been working really hard on, and we've got a really good following now, which is exciting.
Thank you guys.
So thank you very much. Let's do our final closing shot here. I didn't have Harley one this time, I promise. Okay.
It's
cheers.
Toasted.
Yeah, sure. All right. Cheers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.